Hi guys, and welcome to another podcast with Martin and I at the SCI. Thanks for keeping your questions coming. We're going to address some of them today. Now, the first one is clean eating versus IIFYM. I think we should start here by first just defining what these two things are. Now, clean eating is a term given to eating the way nature intended, so clean, unprocessed, unrefined foods, nothing added and nothing taken away. These foods should be wholesome, they should be nourishing, nutrient-rich, single-ingredient foods, essentially everything we recommend to our clients. Now, people often think that clean eating means bland, boring, restrictive eating, but this couldn't be further from the truth. Admittedly, it might take a little bit more imagination to make meals taste as good as their added sugar, reduced fat, refined brethren, but ultimately clean eating is going to make you healthier, at less risk to a whole host of diseases and conditions, not to mention sleep, look and feel much, much better.
So, IIFYM, it's an acronym for if it fits your macros. This essentially is the idea that you have prescribed targets to hit for protein, carbohydrates and fats, and you can choose to hit these targets with whatever foods you like. Sweets, crisps, hot dogs, ice cream, etc. The reason being, if a person's macros have been set up to elicit a calorie deficit and subsequent weight loss from a body composition standpoint, it doesn't matter what they eat. If they're in a deficit for long enough, they are going to lose weight. However, things like allergies, intolerances, hormone levels, insulin sensitivity are almost never taken into account. Often I see people following the IIFYM approach consuming 300 plus grams of carbohydrates, when I can tell just by looking at them that they have very poor carbohydrate tolerance and probably elevated levels of estrogen. So the human body is pretty smart really, and eventually if left to its own devices will sort itself out. So these people using IIFYM will probably end up losing the weight they wanted to. However, it's going to come at a cost. At the SCI, we know we can get better results more efficiently and eliminating potential trigger foods, resetting insulin sensitivity, detoxing and stabilising estrogen, therefore increasing testosterone. So once we've done this, our clients are then occasionally able to enjoy the refined processed foods because our whole body is best suited to cope with them.
This is actually exactly the protocol I used on a couple of occasions last year when I was dieting for a show. I had pretty good carb tolerance and insulin sensitivity and had pretty low levels of body fat. Using the IIFYM approach allowed me to eat out with my partner and my kids when we were on holiday and not derail any progress I made in the weeks prior. But I did reserve it for maybe one meal a month, and the next meal was right back to clean eating, so to speak.
So, moving on to adaptogens. So adaptogens is the name given to a unique group of herbs and spices that have been shown to combat stress. It's claimed that they have been shown to be effective in treating conditions of fatigue to cancer. I must point out, however, that a large percentage of the research on adaptogens was done in Korea and China in the 1980s. Unfortunately, it was not considered conclusive due to the number of flaws.
We can't always rely on scientific research, especially in the health and fitness industry. We do feel that anecdotal evidence and people's personal experiences with these things need to be given some merit. I've read and heard countless reports of people's very positive experiences with things like Siberian ginseng, Korean ginseng, and rhodiola rosea. In fact, Martin has recently been experimenting with rhodiola rosea.
So due to quite high stress levels recently, I've been suffering a little bit with adrenal fatigue. So I did actually try some adrenal reset, which has a number of those adaptogens in it. And after just a few weeks, I did actually start to feel much better.
So while the evidence is fairly inconclusive, we do think a case needs to be made for the use of adaptogens when looking at natural ways of combating stress, anxiety and fatigue. Okay, next up, how many times a week to train? This is possibly one of the most commonly asked questions, and our answer to this is always, it depends. Quite often, it isn't the answer people are looking for, but there is no universal right or wrong amount of times to train per week. When we're advising new clients, we do look at a lot of different variables, such as age, gender, training history, any injuries they might be carrying, their occupation, their ability to recover, their nutrition, and perhaps most importantly, what their goals are.
So all of these factors will pretty much determine how often somebody needs to train. For general health and well-being, probably 2 to 4 times a week is ample. If it's sport specific, the chances are this person is practicing their chosen sport outside of their training sessions. And as the training in the gym will be of secondary importance to their sport, it's extremely important not to overdo it in the weights room. You're going to potentially have a very negative impact on their performance. So for muscle gain purposes, this really does depend on the individual, their nutrition and their ability to recover between sessions. For fat loss, 3 to 5 times a week seems to be a sweet spot, as all of our clients know the importance of good nutrition when trying to lose body fat.
At the SCI, we design weight training programs in such a way to elicit the desired response. Our programs for fat loss, strength gain, muscle building and rehabilitation will all vary greatly. Training frequency should be a very individual thing, but we like our clients to be realistic with their choices and not to beat themselves up if they had in their head they were going to train 4 times, but due to work and family commitments only made it down 2 or 3 times. Training should be for a purpose, but should still be enjoyable. So in terms of keeping a good training, life, family balance and making progress, anywhere between 2 and 5 times a week would work very, very well.
So finally, on to most common training errors. So we quite often, unfortunately, when we first start with new clients, have to undo some of the bad habits that they've picked up elsewhere. I think in most gyms, one of the most common errors you will see is exercise form. The way people perform certain exercises, squats and deadlifts being the main culprits. I think initially Alex and I wrote the training programs for everybody who came through the doors at the SCI, especially those for our personal training clients. While we do still write a lot of the programs, we have recently taken on a couple of fantastic trainers, Kirsty and Will. They have recently been writing programs for some of our new members and our 8-week transformations. They both take great pride in their work and have great attention to detail. So I can say with confidence that we almost never see poor exercise form at the SCI. In fact, we don't really see any training errors at the SCI, to be honest. And if we do, one of us is always on hand to correct it.
So if you train at a gym other than the SCI, just be aware of your form. Use a training partner or even a mirror to check your body position. Be aware of your tempo as well, so that's the speed at which you perform your repetitions. And also be aware of your rest periods. Resting long enough to allow your muscles to recover sufficiently to get another good set, but not so long that they cool down and you lose training pace. People need to be aware of warming up and cooling down properly.
Actually, thinking about it, there is a training-related error we see at the SCI, and that is regardless of how many times we tell clients and members to do mobility work, I think I can count on one hand the number of times they actually do.
So we thank you again for listening. Keep your questions coming on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and we look forward to speaking to you again next month.